Hi, this is Marty Gold, and I'm here with a commentary on the 2023 Manitoba provincial election for winnipegtribune.ca. Last time out here with the Trib, I went over a number of stories, a number of historical matters involving Wab Kinew, other candidates that have not been covered in the election by the media, things that they prefer to ignore, that they don't want voters to be reminded of, as well as things that have happened on the campaign trail or during the course of the election that have been uncovered, in particular by myself. For instance, the attempt to intimidate Robert Falcon-Ouellette running in Southdale by the NDP candidate Renee Cable. As he tells it, no, I don't want to say altercation, a little strong, but certainly a verbal confrontation that she initiated right in the middle of the street while they happen to be each campaigning for votes, he for the Liberals or for the NDP. As well, the issue of Nahanni Fontaine's unexplained name change, which was really just to show that there's an awful lot of hypocrisy going on, that they made a big deal out of Kevin Klein having a different name before he got into politics, and nobody ever mentioned that this was the case with Fontaine, the darling of the far-left NDP. I didn't realize how absolutely true my commentary was when I asked if the media in Winnipeg is providing fair and reasonable coverage of the election. This past week, a few days ago, there was an incident involving Premier Heather Stefanson's constituency office, but you wouldn't know it if you watched the TV newscasts of CBC, CTV, Global, and City. I watched 3 of them. I'm told by others, okay, you can miss something going channel to channel. No coverage. Now, I broke the story on actionline.ca, and it was pretty hard to miss the point of the story as I broke news of this, the defacing, the red paint, the damage to the bricks on the side of the building painted over. I described it. I had that out as fast as possible. Completely rejigged what I was engaged in that day, the podcasting work that I was going to be doing, to make sure I could get this news out. Premier's Grant Avenue office vandalized by missing and murdered Indigenous women protesters. That headline was out there. The newsroom saw it. The TV newscast completely ignored it. And that's after the newspapers picked up on the story, which I got this out around 1 o'clock. By 3, 4, 5 o'clock, they actually finally got stories out. So the newsrooms ignored 3 published reports. Now, mine was accurate. There was a couple of things that weren't quite right. Turns out that this protest thing, the timing of things had to be straightened out a little bit, but the essential details were correct. And I had pictures, and I offered them to the media to use. First story out there was about 3 o'clock on Tuesday by the Winnipeg Sun. Vandals hit Tory leader campaign office over landfill search decision. So the first problem is that that's inaccurate. It was the constituency office. But sometimes a headline can have a glitch. But the opening paragraph has another glitch. Frustration and anger with Heather Stefanson appear to be boiling over for some as her constituency office was vandalized Monday evening after she touted not helping a landfill search for 2 Indigenous women as a reason to vote for the Manitoba PCs. Oh. See? The way the Trudeau-funded local journalism initiative reporter has it for the Winnipeg Sun, it's Heather Stefanson's fault. People are frustrated and angry with her. They're boiling over. And as they describe it on Tuesday morning, placing the vandalism at Monday evening. Tuesday morning, the office was on Grand Avenue was covered in small handprints and with messages painted on the windows as well as onto signs to, quote, search the landfill. Doesn't mention it's red paint, by the way. Covered in small handprints. What does that mean? A sign with Stefanson's face on the corner of the building was also covered in handprints. So the Sun barely reports on the damage and repeats this has angered many families, the refusal of Stefanson to fund. Has angered many families. Has angered many, including families and advocates who for months have been calling for a search of the Prairie Green landfill. So The Sun story does not directly connect it to exactly who was there, who these protesters were, but these are familiar characters from other protest locations, including the Brady landfill and police headquarters, and their presence down at the Forks by the Provencher Bridge. About an hour later, and you give the Sun credit, at least their writer puts a name to it, Free Press couldn't be bothered to have a reporter assigned or take responsibility for the story. Free Press staff posted, "Vandals deface Stefanson's constituency office." Well, at least the headline was right. Winnipeg police are investigating after Progressive Conservative leader Heather Stefanson's constituency office was marked with red handprints and messages to serve the landfill. So more descriptive, then quoting police spokesman, Constable Jason Mikulishin, saying officers are investigating the vandalism, which appears to have been created prior to a protest outside the Grant Avenue building on Monday. What does this mean? The Sun says that the graffiti appeared Monday night. The cops are saying that this appeared Monday before a protest, which apparently is Monday in the afternoon, that snarled traffic. We attended the location on Monday. There was a small protest outside, McLean said. I believe from the officer's observation, the vandalism was already there. And I think it'd been there previously. I don't know for how long, whether it was the last day or so. What? The Premier's constituency office is vandalized. And the police on Monday, and the police don't put out a press release? Well, they showed up Tuesday, around the time I was getting the story out, and collecting evidence. I'm told the RCMP was also in attendance, collecting evidence left behind by the perps. But the TV newsrooms were silent. I have found that CTV managed to crowbar a mention of this into a story about Manitoba Progressive Conservatives pulling out stops with attack ads, according to an analyst. And buried in this story, police were called to the constituency office of Progressive Conservative leader Heather Stefanson the day before, when some protesters were part of a traffic disturbance. Stefanson's office windows were covered in red painted handprints, and signs demanding a search of the landfill were left outside. So you notice there, CTV, and they were talking about how these protesters were at the Brady landfill, again, unrelated to these murders, but blocking the Brady landfill, intimidating those workers, intimidating the community at large, city of Winnipeg, essentially, by blocking access against terms of a court order. And they reference, by yesterday, protesters, not saying it was the same protesters. They don't. And they covered the windows in red painted handprints and with signs demanding a search of the landfill. Doesn't mention the damage to Stefanson's signs. Doesn't mention the red paint on the bricks. Well, now, what happens? Who fixes that? The landlord has to fix that. That's his cost. That's his expense. This is intimidation by any measure to target politicians during an election campaign, to target their property, to target their offices. You would not believe the number of people in this community defending this behavior. The media made no mention of the two signs that were damaged, or the parking lot wall on the side of the building beside Myers Deli that was also painted red. That damage comes out of the landlord's pocket. CTV News didn't want the public to know that, but it's intimidation. If you own a building, you want to rent to politicians who get targeted by radical activists in this manner? Probably not. During an election campaign, this is election intimidation. It is targeting the Progressive Conservatives, and the newsrooms refuse to discuss it. People are laughing about it like it's nothing. They brag online about what they did. Because after tearing down statues of the legislature, they've learned that there's no consequences. Anything done in the cause or in the name of Aboriginal nationalism or whatever, that seems to have an exemption from the entire justice system from Danny Smythe on down. They're emboldened. And I'm not saying it's a violent mob, but it is a destructive mob. If you don't think it's destructive, well, pull out your checkbook and you cover the damage the landlord's going to have to pay. Or maybe you should cover his deductible for his insurance. This is unacceptable. Why would the media not tell voters that activists that Wab Kinew supports vandalized the Premier's office? Now, one person responding online said, oh, the media did cover this example of petty vandalism. Too bad you don't use your platform to support a search. Well, no, they didn't. None of the newscasts mentioned it. The 2 newspaper articles left out important pieces of intimidation. And election intimidation is not petty. Let them come vandalize your home. Target you in the course of public service. Better yet, what happens if they did this to Wab Kinew's constituency office? How long do you think there would be claims of some kind of bigotry, racism, or some other negative connotation? But when it happens to a conservative, it doesn't even get on the 6 o'clock news, even when it's the Premier and even when it's in River Heights. Oh, sorry, technically Tuxedo. You get the idea. The media stifling events like this, the media ignoring intimidation like this. Why? Ask yourselves. Why doesn't the public have a right to know? Why do the newsrooms not report on this? None of the television newscasts. You'd think that would be the best visual they'd have all day. Red paint smearing Heather Stefanson's face. Signs to search the landfill propped up outside the office. They didn't go near it. Maybe it's because they're afraid if they report on it, report on this intimidation, their TV studios will be next. I'm Marty Gold. I'll be back with more news, information, analysis, and opinion about the 2023 Manitoba provincial election for winnipegtribune.ca.